Right. So first, if you could just introduce yourself and then your relationship to Mary's Place.
I'm Dan McGrady, former board member, board chair, longtime volunteer for many, many years.
hmm And how did you first get involved with Mary's Place?
It's a funny little story. Many, many years ago, Seattle City Council member Tom Rasmussen called me when I worked at Vulcan, asking if we had storage and office space for a little nonprofit organization, wasn't even a nonprofit then, called Mary's Place, also known as the Church of Mary Magdalene. So we were able to find office space and storage space for Mary's Place. So that's how I got introduced, and then involved. That's the very beginning. Then there's just always a story for everything that comes after. But let you ask the questions.
Do you have a favorite memory of Mary's Place? Was there like a moment or an interaction that stands out to you? You can have multiple if you want.
Oh, I would have to say I'd have hundreds.
hmm
Um, where to start? But, oh gosh. Um, so Mary's Place found itself homeless. So when I worked at Vulcan, Marty said, "This is just temporary. We have a new home." 6 months later, Marty called and said, um, "We're now homeless. So when I told you we would be able to move out in a few months, we can't. Uh, can you help?" And then a colleague and I, Phil Fuji, got involved and helped Mary's Place get money from the city and the county to support itself, and find a building, and then found so many buildings after that. It's hard to choose. I would just say my involvement with Mary's Place is probably the second proudest thing I've ever done. It's the thing I'm proud, second place behind having kids.
hmm
I've had the best experience working for Mary's Place from when it was a teeny tiny little organization to a $20 million organization.
hmm Great. What impact did you see Mary's Place having in the greater Seattle community, would you say?
Well, and I mean, there are so many levels. One is we were the only people doing what we did, taking um, in the beginning women and children who were
hmm
homeless. We became the first organization to keep families intact. So if there was a husband, a boyfriend, something in the mix, families could stay together. First organization to do that. We were the first organization to allow families to take pets into shelter.
hmm
Um, and all of these things were barriers to people coming into shelter. Was families didn't want to separate from spouses, significant others, you name it, to there could be men with children and they didn't have a place to go, to pets, to forcing the city to take family homelessness and the county more seriously. That was an impact that's still being felt and still being fought for at the city
hmm
and the county and at the state level. Um, and then all the other services around what Mary's Place is able to provide. We're often the first ones to do it, the only ones to do it. Inviting in providers to do jobs, to help secure jobs and employment, training, education, substance abuse counseling. Mary's Place was the hub. No one else was doing that. We were the first ones to take over old hotels and put
hmm
put people who are homeless in them. Families could close a door. That was brand new. Now everybody talks about doing that, but Mary's Place was the first one to do it. There's just so many firsts, so many onlys. Um, that Mary's Place, the leadership that we were able to provide, no one else has been able to match it,
Mm-hmm.
which is a
Mm-hmm.
bummer, but it's just sad for everybody else, but good for Mary's Place of what we were able to accomplish.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned a couple things in your last answer that relate to this, but how have you seen the organization itself grow and change throughout your time there?
You ask all these questions. I was fortunate enough to be there when our budget was just a few $100,000, and
Mm-hmm.
it was the Church of Mary Magdalene before we even formed a nonprofit. Um, it was just a teeny tiny organization doing important work. And then how many years later when I left the board? 13, 14, 15 years later, we were a multi-million-dollar organization that was the only kind of the only group of its kind in the country doing what we did. I kind of lost track of the question, but there were so many stepping stones along the way, and milestones that I could talk about if that's of interest. But it started with a bunch of people who didn't have money, didn't have connections, did not have any political power, but formed this organization. Barbara was a part of that. And but we worked together to work miracles.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
then we could talk more about other milestones along the way. But it was a very different organization, and it's really grown and sprouted into something people around the country know about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about those milestones? Which ones do you think are particularly important or were particularly impactful?
Um, we were one of the first nonprofits that had private property owners donate property for us to provide shelter,
Mm-hmm.
and then we would voluntarily turn it back and say thank you. That's not typically how this would go. We, we would hit $500,000 budget, $1 million budget, and then a $2 million budget, and all the time we were um, doing things that nobody else is doing. I mentioned keeping the families together, allowing pets to move in. Um, we got up to 700, I think, beds that we could provide on any given night. Um, there was a period there, I can't remember the year, where no, Starbucks came in first and big. It was their first time doing something like they did for Mary's Place many years ago, and
Mm-hmm.
involving all parts of the organization to help Mary's Place achieve its goals. Later that year, Amazon jumped in, um, and we exploded. We probably doubled in size in a year and a half because of the community support, the local community support that we had, to Amazon building a building just for us that we
Mm-hmm.
could use until the problem was solved. Those are just some of the bigger milestones, and along the way there were many, many smaller ones. But the whole time we did two things. We focused on helping as many people as we can every night, so quantity, but at the same time making sure that everybody got the same quality experience, and dignity in the service. It's hard to do both.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to increase the number of people you serve and keep quality the same. But Marty was laser focused on making sure that quality did not suffer as we grew and expanded.
Mm-hmm. Thinking about those milestones, was there a time period of the organization's history or some events in the organization's history that you think are really particularly important when talking about and recording the history?
I talked about one where in roughly the same year, Amazon and Starbucks jumped in with both feet to support the organization, and that was a big kind of leap forward as an organization. Um, I mentioned a lot of those. It was just the things that we did and how we did it, um, how we had a showdown with the city over funding for one of our facilities. The city wanted to impose conditions on us that we just could not live with and abide by in good conscience. And
Mhm.
we said, no. We said, you can keep the money because we're not willing to sacrifice our values and the way we do things for public money. And that just didn't really happen. And ultimately, we got the city to change course a little bit to see things our way, but we were willing to say no when we felt we had to, and we were able to be leaders for other providers who could not stand up and say no, who could not push back against the city. And
Mhm.
one of the reasons we could do that is because the most of our funding came from private sources. We
Mhm.
were not we are the inverted pyramid. Most organizations have like 90% government funding, 10% private. We're kind of the opposite, 10% government funding, 90% private. That gives you more flexibility than the average organization.
Mhm.
And I'm not even talking about all the people, all the fun
Mhm.
board members, all the staff um, who were ultimately the heart and soul of the organization. So while I've been focused on kind of achievements, accomplishments, and growth, and some of the notable support that we've had, it's always been about the people. It's about the staff. It's about our guests. It's about them. Our board, my job, I felt as a board member, is I worked for our staff. Whatever we worked very hard to provide our staff and the organization whatever they needed.
Mhm.
Um, and so it was all yeah, at its heart, it was always about people, but it manifested in ways that were tangible. And
Mhm.
that is so rewarding for people like me, where you can touch and see and feel the fruits of your labor.
Mhm. Finally, for just to end the interview today, this is sort of an open-ended response, but um, if you have any memories or insights or experiences that you want to share that you want to be a part of this interview and this history project, I would love to hear about them right now.
Oh my God, there's 1,000. Um, so this is kind of a chance to say what I didn't get to say before.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'd have a hard time not repeating what I said just because I was trying to be so selective. But um, it's amazing what can happen when you have an inspiring leader, a great mission, and you're filling a need that no one else is filling. And we were able to take that and build tremendous community support. I couldn't go anywhere in Seattle. In the beginning, I would say I'm with Mary's Place, and they would say Mary's what? Or the Church of Mary Magdalene. And it was just nobody. I worked across the street from the original shelter. I didn't know it was there.
Well,
Now, and it's so gratifying, you run into people and they're like, oh, I donated. I give my clothes to Mary's Place. My child did collected pennies in their classroom. The support that the organization built painstakingly over many, many, many years, I've never seen anything like it. Never been a part of anything like that. and I don't think I ever will again. But that's a secret sauce, an inspiring leader, a great mission, an important, vital mission, and filling a need that no one else is filling.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, I'm not giving you great answers, but
No, you are. Thank you so much for sitting down with me and talking about your experiences and talking about Mary's Place. I really
yeah.
enjoyed hearing your responses. So thank you so much.